we got Matt, Hockey Pro Training, Jason, I'm Train 2.0. We're doing a little podcast conversation. This is a bit of a test format. We thought we'd get together and just talk hockey. I think we both have some unique perspectives on the game. We come from at it from a different angle. We'll be talking for like the elite hockey player, the parent, coaches, and even some players that are maybe like getting into the game too. What kind of things are you wanting to cover in our conversations, Matt? What things do you think people will be interested in hearing?
I mean, I could go a million different ways to start this bad boy off, but thank you for having me on today. I love this idea. I love this format. I've been following the NHL playoffs quite closely, so that's something we could discuss if you're into doing that. But I think more than that, I wanted to kind of dive deeper, as I sent you a message earlier, into how you could start to be different in a world that's kind of always thinking the same. So I don't exactly know what that's going to look like, but that was something I was thinking about earlier. I talked a little bit during my own coaching program last week about being a difference maker. It's great to have skills. It's great to work hard. It's great to, be dedicated, passionate, all these things. But what is making the biggest difference, let's say at the highest level in the NHL playoffs, at camps, at showcases? It's not always that, in big games. The work I do is very mindset, mental game focused. And so I'm always trying to find the edge from that side of things. So I see a lot of players who aren't the best players skill wise having massive impacts, So how to think about things a little bit differently. I know, Jason, when I first got into your work, that's what kind of drew me to it. Like you were doing things differently with the downhill skating system, the way you think, the way you posted, saw the world. And I appreciate that about you. And so that's kind of, the way I'm seeing things to get started here today.
Well, that's perfect. It's funny. Thank you for complimenting me because my first thing was I thought I was going to start with all the things I like about you. And yeah, I just wanted to start there because I think it's a good way to start the conversation. The things I like about you are that you're honest. You don't have a hidden agenda. Like I think a lot of coaches do, or maybe it's not like hidden, it's just not like overt. It's not 100% clear. You show up and you keep showing up every day. You're literally a pro. Like it's not just your name. You're a pro. And the thing that I find most impressive about you is that you're willing to transcend yourself. And I think you know that you got to do that for yourself so that you can give the best results to your clients. And I have a ton of respect for that. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like, how do you think you got to that point of being able to transcend yourself? Because that's probably how you became a difference maker yourself.
I would reply to the first question with the question. How do you define that? Transcending
Transcending yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the things I've seen with you and successful people is they run into a limit, some sort of limit, right? Of like on their performance, usually, or some aspect of their life, and they kind of bump up against it. And then they realize, oh, I have a belief about either myself or my identity or the world. And then they're actually willing to reprogram that and say, okay, I'm willing to actually change that belief to go to that next level of performance, like find that new, just break through that plateau. And that happens all over the place. It happens in hockey, it happens in business, it happens in the media. And yeah, I've seen it with you a lot. So that's how I would define that.
Love it. Thank you for the clarification on that. And thank you for the compliment as well. I mean, I've gone through a lot of stuff in my life when it comes to things that people probably don't see on the Instagram, YouTube, social media side of things with my health, with my healing journey, let's call it. And so I've had to transcend myself over and over and over again to get myself to where I am today. And I often talk about like, if you can go from, where you are right now to where you want to be, you can do that because you've gone from where you were to where you are right now. So wherever you are right now in your own hockey journey, business journey, parental journey, whatever it is, you always have another level to get to because you've always broke through other plateaus to get to exactly where you are now. And so I think just in doing that, my beliefs have changed in terms of what's possible. I've gone from doing X to doing a higher level of X to doing a higher. So you always just keep breaking through those plateaus. You start to prove it to yourself that, hey, I can actually do this. And I talk a lot about going back to the proof. And so for me, I think the proof is a powerful way of looking at being able to get to where you want to get to in terms of the next step. Secondly, I would say getting around people who also have done the same thing. So guys like yourself and other people I'm able to work with, they've been able to naturally do that time and time again. So I see it in them. So I start to see it in me. And something I've talked a lot about in terms of the offseason is hanging around people that don't see it in themselves. And so it's going to be impossible for you as a player to get it as well, right? If guys around you, girls around you aren't transcending themselves, breaking through, pushing past what they think is possible, it's going to be very hard for you to adopt those beliefs as well. It was for me anyways.
And so who have you surrounded yourself with to do that?
I mean, you're one of the guys. I work with another guy behind the scenes that helps me with all my website stuff, Facebook stuff, everything like that. He's been a partner, a mentor. I'm not sure exactly what you would call him. I think a lot of my clients that are playing at high levels have really inspired me, and I've seen them do things that I wasn't able to do, and so seeing them do it has really helped me believe that. I've been a podcast listener since like 1999, or when they first came out. So I've always been, bringing people into my world and reading different books and learning from as many people as I can. And so I think in doing that, I got myself to a place where it's like time for me to figure out a few things for myself. And I think that's where I'm at now. And that's another motivation maybe for this podcast and this chat to inspire people to dive deeper into who they truly are as players and stop comparing and stop trying to be like this, that, or the other, and just figuring out how can I be the most authentic, elite, original version of myself to stand out so I can stop waiting for people to pick me, for their team, make the team, and go from a mindset shift of like abundance where everybody wants me the team because I'm so unique and they have to have me. That's the shift I'm looking for a lot of players to start to make. So I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's my answer.
What are the themes you're seeing right now with players? Because, and I ask that because you're very tuned into the psychology aspect, and like you just said it right there, like what the stresses that players are having about comparing themselves to other people, maybe having a scarcity mindset. And for me, I'm less involved in that. I'm more focused on the mechanics, like what are the biomechanics of the player, and I usually remain quite focused on that. But things are changing. Teams are changing. I think hockey's getting more competitive. It's getting more expensive. What kind of trends are you seeing emerging in the last, say, 5 years that weren't around before?
I mean, the ability to stay locked in on your goal and not get distracted is obviously a huge one. I think stress, anxiety, pressure, all of those things have ramped up due to the social media and the comparison epidemic we're probably in right now. I mean, I talked to a kid this morning, junior hockey player, and this is a big one across the board. The ability to perform in practice and have confidence in practice, make plays in practice, be free in practice, but that completely going away when the puck drops in a game and he makes one mistake and then he just goes back to his old safe self is something I see time and time again. The mistake mentality is something I dive a lot into, and that's just the idea of like you make one mistake, you're the worst person in the world, you get benched. And a lot of this comes back to coaching as well. We could talk about that a little bit, the way I kind of see that happening. But yeah, those are a few of them, man. I'd have to think a little bit more on that as of recent, but it's also like the overnight success thing where people see guys playing D1 or they're playing junior A and they're playing maybe junior B or junior C, whatever, and they want to be at that level tomorrow. They miss the like 3 to 5 years of grind. So I think players are missing out on the grind a lot. Like they don't understand. You talk about like transcending yourself and getting to where I am today. Like this is 10 years. This is a decade. Whatever you think this is, if this is good, bad, or whatever, it just is what it is, but it's a decade, Like
Yeah.
it's every day. When we talk about being a pro, for me, it's every day working at it on some level. So players maybe getting away from the understanding of what it takes to be successful might be an overarching theme across the board. I'm not sure what you would say from your perspective, working on the skills side of things, but that's one thing I would say.
Well, I always wonder this. I always wonder because I see these things on social media, which is like the older generation always blames the younger generation and is like, oh, the younger generation is so impatient and they're so immature and they're so entitled and they're going to ruin our world. And that's been like going on since like since like media existed. And, you know, I and I've seen it play out. And honestly, I would say I am guilty. Like when I was 17, 18, I was like, I want it now. I don't want to put in the work. Like I will, but like I don't really want to. I just want it now. I want to be in the NHL now. I want business success now. And there was a part of me that was like entitled to it. Like if I'm being honest, like I felt entitled. Like I
Yeah.
should somehow get it. And I think that was just me being 18, 19. And so I always wonder, is it an actual generation thing or is it just an age thing?
Perception thing.
Yeah, perception I don't know because it's quite interesting. And so if you actually go back into some of my early stuff, like I had courses which was like learn to skate like McDavid in 1 week. And the point stands that you can drastically make improvements in about a week, but you can't skate like McDavid in a week. And that was a bit, it was clickbaity and whatnot, but it got people's attention. But yeah, it's not accurate by any means, right?
Yeah. I think one thing I've learned lately and one thing I've been trying to hammer home to people is the understanding that in order to get to wherever it is you want to be, you have to go through the things you're going to go through right now to get yourself there. So like the guy that wants to play in the NHL who's maybe 2 steps away, he's not there because he hasn't learned the things he had to learn to make himself into an NHL person, into an NHL player to play at that level. So if he would
Mhm.
have got there when he wanted to, he wouldn't have been ready anyways.
Yeah.
You had to go through the steps and had to go through the process to be ready for the actual event and to become that person. So I think just accepting where you're at is such a powerful thing. It's the hardest thing to do, but it's kind of the first step to move forward, in my opinion. You accept where you're at, you figure out where you want to be, then you accept the fact that, listen, there's maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of grind ahead of you to get to where you want to be. But that's it, looking back, maybe you would agree. It's like the funnest part. Like I've been in the grind for 10 years. I don't want to be anywhere else. I'm happy where I'm at, but it's taken me maybe a while to get to this level of gratitude, for lack of a better word.
Oh, totally. Gratitude is such a big thing. And yeah, I agree with you on that. Like it's the repetition, the grind, and yeah, like you're right about if you don't go through those steps to be ready, you're not actually ready. That's hard. It's hard to kind of grapple with. So you mentioned the NHL.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as difference makers in the NHL?
Oh man, that's a great question. I want to share one quick quote before I get to that. So I just wrote it down. The confidence you're looking for is in the work you're not doing or the work you're going to do, right? Because that's where
Totally.
all the confidence comes from. Players are always like, Matt, how do I get confidence? How do I become more confident? You know how to become more confident. You mentioned the word reps, and I'm big on the word reps. I want to get t-shirt design to just say reps. That's all it's about. We can do this, that, or the other thing. You can do a million different things, right? There's a million ways to skate, shoot, do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's reps. And so it's such an important thing. But at the NHL level, I think the ability to well, in the playoffs, the emotional control, I think, has been a big piece I've been paying attention to. Who can stay even keel for the longest, not ride the waves of the ups and the downs? Who can stay present in the moment, not take dumb penalties? Everything like that is such a massive factor all the time, but it even gets ramped up at this time of year. I also think the ability to just compete. Like I was watching that Bertuzzi last night. My wife never watches games with me, and she was watching with me. And I was telling her kind of his story and his background, the things he's done. And he was out there at one play. His stick was like over his shoulder. The puck was in front of him. He went for like a soccer style kick pass. And I just burst out laughing. She's like, "What?" I'm like, "That's just this guy, man. He finds ways to get it done." And somebody on Twitter this morning had that clip clipped up and it said, "This man's brain needs to be studied." But what I love about him is just the ability to get it done, the ability to play with intensity, the ability to show up shift after shift, and not allowing your outcome to dictate your output, right? And so these guys, even at the NHL level, you see the body language. They miss the chance, the shoulder slump. They kind of hold themselves back, and the confidence, momentum. Another big keyword I've been using lately. It just gets stalled and then reversed. And so keeping up that confidence, momentum, shift after shift, game after game is something I think every player could benefit from. And I think that is where the mental game and the self-talk can really start to, separate you from everybody else. Because while you're going backwards or staying stuck, where they're going backwards or staying stuck, you're just catapulting ahead, focusing forward. And there's so much power in that.
That is, you're talking hockey here, Matt, but you're using a lot of kind of progressive personal development terms here, like staying in the present and like, your outcome doesn't what would you say? It doesn't dictate your output, confidence, momentum. I don't know. Is there room in the game for these types of progressive thoughts? Does it actually make a difference?
I mean, if you've seen the progressions the players I've worked with make by doing this stuff, you would be a believer and stop what you're doing right now and get after it. I mean, the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. You got a body, you got a mind. If you're training the body, you got to be training the mind. And if you are, you're going to see benefits from it. Once again, you're putting in the reps, you're going to get the results. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, maybe you will, but eventually, somewhere along the lines, these reps will catch up to you. That's a great way of looking at it. The reps will catch up to you at some point, and you will start to get benefits from it. What are you seeing in today's game? Anything that you've noticed from because I
Well,
mean, it's something I talk about all the time. Everyone's got skills. As you move up the levels, everyone's going to be skilled. Everyone's working hard to some degree. So how do you separate as you're doing that?
well, that the term pay the fee comes into play. Like you said, reps. And yeah, I'd say there's a mentor out there who said that pay the fee, meaning there is a fee for success, and people got to be willing to pay it. It doesn't work the other way around. You don't get success and then you're willing to pay the fee. You pay the fee and then you get success. That's how it works. You want to go to a concert, you buy the ticket, then you go to the concert. So that means like you do the reps of stick handling, you do the mindset reps of visualizing and doing the emotional work to get yourself in state. You have the conversation, the mature conversations you have to have with coaches. Like you do all these things first, and then you get the results. And I think that, again, I think it's often, not always, but it's often young people. And it might be a part of maturing. But I think, and also you just see it in more successful people. Like Sidney Crosby, that guy gets paying the fee, right? Like McDavid, that guy gets paying the fee. He's not neither of those guys are entitled to any, they don't feel entitled to anything because why? Well, they put in the work. Like they put in the work and they do more work and they outwork everyone, I think. Like
Here's my follow-up question for you. Sorry to cut you off, but how do you get the idea of paying the fee if you're not one born with it? I think some people, Crosby's got that from day one. McDavid had that from day one. They've always understood that concept. I only understand that concept today because I didn't pay the fee as a player and I got the negative debt as a result. I got to play semi-pro at a very low level when I do truly believe my ceiling, my full potential was the NHL. But I didn't pay the debt. I didn't pay the fee. Now I pay the fee because, I mean, I just understand that's how it works. So how do you understand that? Because a big part of my work at the start of my journey was getting people to understand that the things that they have to do without going through the pain and the suffering that I've gone through. My lessons are all pain driven. I mean, which is fine at this point. It wasn't great along the journey, but how do people get that right now?
Well, it's a belief, right? It's a patterned belief. And, I literally just had this conversation with a friend, which is a belief is just a thought that you have with absolute certainty that is true. And so how do you create absolute certainty in a thought? Well, you repeat it, repetition, and then you also bring intensity to it. You also use the word intensity. So you actually have congruency between the words you say are your belief, your body, and your mind and how you behave. That's all congruent. So, I can say, I believe in paying the fee. I can say that, but to be congruent with that, I need to repeat it to myself many times, and I need to be 100% clear on what it is and the benefit that it's actually going to create for me. And if I have another belief, which is like a belief of, oh yeah, like I should just get it because I'm kind of naturally talented. I need to, as maybe a young player or maybe a parent or maybe an older, it doesn't matter really. I need to associate that belief of I should just get it because I'm good. I need to associate that with negative outcomes because that is the case. And so to create that right now for someone, they've got to do that work to associate the pay the fee belief with the positive outcomes, and they have to repeat it and they have to be congruent with it. And anyone can do it right now if they do those things. And I believe, and that's kind of how I do it, and that's how I would recommend it. Um, but they got to be aware of it first, right? Like if they're not aware of that mindset or that belief, then why would they do it?
Yeah, and I think I talk about this all the time. When I was playing hockey, my self-awareness was negative 1,000. I just didn't understand. I didn't understand any of this stuff, right? So I was making the same mistakes subconsciously over and over and over again. So you
Yeah,
same thoughts, you take the same actions, you get the same results. It's just a repeating cycle. I
yeah,
talked to the kid this morning. I had like an intro call with him, and I broke down this kind of idea, and he's like, "Damn, that's exactly me. I'm working harder. I'm putting in more reps, but come game time, my mind is always in the same place. So I'm taking the same action. I'm getting the same result. I'm never really getting myself anywhere. I'm on this hard work hamster wheel, as I like
yeah,
to call it, right? You're working hard. Don't get me wrong. Most kids are working hard on some level, right? But they're not all of them are getting themselves to the place they want to be because they're not having that level of self-awareness that they're making the same mistakes or plays every single game.
yeah, yeah. And I was a lot of that too. Like, Tony Robbins always says your life is either a warning or a lesson, right?
Totally.
Uh, and for me, the thing was, yeah, hard work hamster wheel. I put all my time and energy into getting stronger in the gym because that's what I believed that I needed to do. And it would, most of the time when all the situations were like in my favor, I would play well and with intensity, and I had the strength and power to play well. But the thing I was missing from the mindset side was like maybe 25-30% of the time bringing the intensity that was needed. Not the intensity, but having the confidence, something that you work on a lot. And the other part for me, you had the question earlier about mechanics, was my mechanics were not awful, but like pretty bad. And I was able to make up for it with like massive, massive levels of like hard work and athleticism. And yeah, that was a big part of it for me from the mechanic side. But yeah, confidence. It was just there were some people that they could be 100 like I was in junior, and there's one guy who's playing a very high level of pro now. He played many years in the AHL, and he was just a gamer. The bigger the game, the better he played. And I thought it was at the time, I thought it was something he had and I didn't. But I realized it was just a conditioned belief. It was a thought pattern that he had that in games he knew how to control his emotions, stay in the present, all the things you were talking about,
Mhm.
which are like they're so important. Why do you think, I don't know if you have any other questions, but like that where you wanted to direct this, but like why do you think this type of thinking, this type of conversation has not been super popular in hockey? I feel it's starting to turn the tide. There's lots of people that are like you and starting to talk about confidence and interweaving a more holistic approach to hockey. But why do you think that's been missing in hockey up till now?
I would say I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this and break this down. I would say it's hard to tap into that side of you that's maybe like perceived as a weakness. So I think a lot of times the mental game or working on your confidence or working on yourself gets intertangled or intertwined with mental health. And I went through a really, really tough, crazy mental health battle myself over a decade ago. And I know how hard it was for me to reach out and say to someone, man, I need help. I can't do this. My wife can't do this. I need professional help. You don't always need professional help, but I'm saying like it's hard for maybe men in general. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, to say I need some help. My mind game's not as strong as it should be. I'm not confident. It's hard for someone to say that. I talked to another kid today. His mom's
Mhm.
like, I want my son to work with you. He's skeptical. Can you do an intro call with him? He's not into it really. And I get that because there is still that stigma around like saying, I'm not confident, I'm not strong, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And so I think that trickles down from the top, right? Like the older generation. I mean, my dad would have never admitted things to me that I've talked to my kids about, right? He didn't want to seem weak or didn't want to come off whatever. He's always trying to push this maybe narrative of how he's doing. And maybe there's a time and a place for that, but I think that's where it starts. And so it's trickling down, where people of our generation are now like, okay, my awareness is much higher than maybe my parents' awareness was. I can see the errors of not only their ways, but more importantly, my own ways. And so the more often we can see the error of our own ways, we can start to correct those behaviors and make some changes. So yeah, it's good to see things going in a different direction, and I think they'll only progress from here.
I think with players. like I like Paul Bissonnette and Kevin Bieksa entering the media,
Yeah.
because they're very relatable, they're very in touch, and they're bringing new angles to the analysis of the game that is just really smart, and I think has been missing, because those talking heads, for lack of a better term, are a lot of where the kind of hockey culture stems from. And I loved Don Cherry growing up, but he's not going to be a huge proponent of Brene Brown and being vulnerable about your feelings, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that things are moving that direction.
And to bring things back around to what I said earlier about being yourself, I think those guys are successful because they're very authentic and they're themselves, for better or
Yeah.
worse. Sometimes that's where you have to think about it as a hockey player, as a person. It has to be for better or worse. It can't just be, and I've been guilty of this myself, just putting out this image of perfection. Nothing's ever wrong. Everything I do is right. Everything's polished. I mean, I'm not that polished, but I think you get my point. Like these guys just, they spit it. And when I'm at my best, I'm just spitting it as I'm kind of seeing it. You know what I mean? Not right, not wrong. It's just how I view things in the moment. And I'm open to being wrong. I'm open to being right. I don't really see things as right or wrong for the most part, if we're talking about a hockey play per se. So yeah, something to think about as a younger player out there. Stop the perfectionism and the you got to be a certain way or fit in a certain mold. You don't. The best thing you can do for yourself is break out of the mold, create your own mold, and I think that's the best way to go about it moving forward.
Yes, and I would say context dependent, because
100%.
there are times where, especially when I was younger, and so many, I think the listeners of the podcast are gonna be like, all right, we got enough of the mistakes from when you were younger, Jason and Matt, we get it. But the right thing at the wrong time is still a mistake, right? So it's
Yep.
like, be vulnerable, but don't roll into a tryout day one and be like, hey everyone, having a really bad day. Right? Like, but that context, that right timing of that vulnerability is like maybe with a trusted friend or a parent or a trusted coach, at the right time to get that help. And then a display of confidence at a different time when it's appropriate for that context too. That that is something that young Jason might have done the right thing at the wrong time. And I still struggle. Everyone struggles with that, right? But that's, I think, an important piece.
100%. Also rolling into a tryout thinking I'm going to be Joe Playmaker guy. I'm going to just throw everything out there, make all these plays. You know, even in a game or whatever scrimmage, you got to, the context is also very important as to when you're rolling out these new ideas. 100%.
Yeah, totally. Well, I know we only have another couple minutes, and this has been fun. I've enjoyed it. I like talking with you, which is why we wanted to do this. Maybe to wrap up, maybe a couple hot takes. I don't have anything like well prepared for this. Like hot takes on the playoffs. Like, what are your thoughts on how things are going? Who's going to be spicy? Who's doing a good job? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think Matthew Nyes is going to be one of the most impactful players in the NHL in the next 2 to 3 years. I think he's started to understand how strong he is, how talented he is. He works hard, he grinds, he's intense. I love his game. So that's my kind of semi hot take. It's not the hottest of takes. I would have had some hot takes a couple days ago when the Leafs were getting spanked, but now they've kind of got themselves back in the series. They're kind of back to where they always are. I will leave it on. Leave you guys with one major takeaway in terms of building up your own confidence. That's a question I get all the time. For me, it's kind of simple. This is a simple way to look at it. To build up your own confidence right now, because once again, you can start this and get yourself going literally overnight. You have to be working on yourself, seeing some progress, and then getting yourself some results. So those last two you can kind of flip flop as to how they work out. But the number one thing you got to do is start working on yourself, physically, mentally, whatever it is. There you go. Number two, once you do that, you're going to see some progress. Number three, get yourself some next level results, some different results you've gotten before. Then that cycle kind of plays back into itself and you can just keep working with that. It's a real basic way to start to look at it, but the number one thing you got to do is, I mean, being self-aware is probably the first step, but then the second step is working on yourself in some capacity.
What you're saying is wise and 100% correct. And it's also probably not something new that anyone has heard before, right? But like that's the benefit of having a coach, is that that person will actually make sure to hold you accountable to actually doing that. And when you are missing the mark on doing that, they will help bring you back to that. And that's why you're great. That's why you're great at what you do, and why you get the results that you
I
do,
appreciate
which is
that. And I heard someone told me one time is that you can't it's hard to coach yourself because you can't see all the angles because you're
You
too
can't.
emotionally wrapped up in it. So you're missing. Everyone thinks, well, I can just figure this out, man. I'll just figure this out myself. And maybe you will. You know, I've figured out a lot of things on my own, but sometimes it's just that one little insight or that one little nudge in that different direction where you go, that's the thing I'm missing. And that's the thing that kind of can speed up the process at the end of the day.
An important part of what I do with coaching is pattern recognition.
Totally.
Because when you recognize the patterns, then you can start to use the patterns instead of having those patterns run you unconsciously and run you without you knowing. And so one of those patterns is that for any top performer, any amazing person that you know and you look up to and you're like, wow, they're so good, even if it appears like they're just running the ship all on their own, they're not. There is someone ahead of them that is maybe not even ahead of them, maybe just from a different perspective, like you said, who's guiding them, who's coaching them, who's covering their blind spots. And that person might not be super public, right? It might be the what's his name, Tim Grover of the Michael Jordan and Kobe and LeBron. Like, not everyone knows who Tim Grover is. We do because we're kind of nerds, but like not everyone knows that. And but he's there. He's pushing them. He's making them better. And there's always that person in the shadows. And I think it's important for people to realize that's a pattern. That coach and that advice is a really important thing for people who want to achieve their full potential.
Totally. I'll leave the people with one last thing because I love to give takeaways. One more mistake I made as a younger player was not getting myself around the right people in the offseason. I talked about that earlier in the podcast. Get yourself around some people that are actually doing it. I talk a lot about actually doing it compared to like pretending to do it. I did a lot of pretending to do it. I'm kind of working out. I'm going to the skates. I'm doing it. I'm really out there doing it. I wasn't really doing it. So find some guys or girls that are 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. Get around them. Find a way to make it happen. It's a game changer. It's going to change your mindset, the way you see things. You're going to start to figure out, oh, that's why they play AAA and I play single A. I get it now. Now I got to get these AAA habits going. So I got the AAA dream. I got to get the AAA habits. All right. So find a way to do that, and you can rapidly speed up the process. And then you just keep going from here to here to here to here, and then you're on your way.
Well, this has been a fun chat. And I think the thing I'll leave people with here is, if you liked this pod, if you liked this conversation, send us a note. Because if we are not, we're not gonna keep doing it if no one likes it. If you hate the pod, let us know that too. Be like, hey, like this conversation was absolutely boring and a waste of time. I can't believe I just burned, an hour or half hour listening to this. Like, never make this again. That's great too. But yeah, like Matt and I won't go through the effort of doing this if it's not worth it to you. So let us know if you want us to keep making these and keep having these conversations. And also let us know your questions and things you'd like us to discuss. I think what makes Matt and I unique, like I said from the beginning, for Matt is like we're very involved in the hockey world, but we're a little bit on the outside looking in. So we don't have any sort of biases or things that I don't need to kind of talk the party line because of some job I'm worried about not getting, right? Like in the hockey world. So Matt and I can be a bit more freewheeling, a bit more honest with parents, players, coaches, and so we're happy to go there. We're happy to talk and share our insights in those things. So, like I said, let us know if you hate it. Let us know if you love it. Let us know. But thanks, Matt, for the convo, and looking forward to hearing from our audience here.
Yeah, thanks for doing it. If you guys are going to send some feedback, send me the positive feedback, send the negative feedback to Jason. Super sensitive, super insecure, and I just like the positive.
Okay, I'll filter that for you.
Yeah,
All right,
filter that.
thanks,
Perfect.
Matt.
All right, see you, buddy.